Hello and welcome to China Focus. I'm Shelley Zhang. The U.S. and China may be headed toward a clash over, of all things, accounting practices. That's because earlier this month, the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission charged the Chinese affiliates of the top 5 accounting firms with violating U.S. securities law. That's because these firms refused to turn over the audit work papers for 9 Chinese companies that the SEC is investigating for fraud. Now, these companies refused to turn over the papers because they said if they did so, they would violate Chinese state securities laws. Here today to talk about this issue and its implications, we have Chen Zhifei and Jason Ma. Thanks both for joining us. Now, what's the heart of the issue here? It seems that, these accounting firms aren't just being difficult. It seems like they're really just kind of caught between 2 countries. Is that
exactly? That's exactly the point. I mean, although kind of SEC is suing those 5 companies, but indeed the conflicting is between the U.S. Law and the Chinese policy. So basically, without China change their policy, those companies cannot do anything. But without kind of SEC back off, the thing will not end. So basically, although it's a company between the SEC, but indeed that's the Chinese government between U.S. government. So it's kind of definitely it's a compromise should be finally. If there is a compromise happen, it should be between the Chinese government and the U.S. government.
Now, what we're really talking about here is fraud. I mean, how much of a risk are these Chinese companies? The SEC is investigating 9 of them, but there are more than 400 listed on the U.S. stock markets.
Yeah, and of the 400 listed here, a lot of them were done through the regular process of IPO, which is good. But a lot of them also took the back door and come in through a sort of a gimmick called reverse merger. And last June, SEC started investigating 154 of these firms, and like up to 23 of these reverse merger Chinese firms got delisted because their accounting information was inaccurate in a very gross manner. Sometimes those companies reported revenues that were non-existent. Even their cash flows didn't match up with the bank account, which was inconceivable by U.S. standards. So we're looking at Chinese firms that are listed here that are totally out of sync with the business practice set up or seen as standard in this economy.
Right. Indeed, I mean, all kind of those 9 companies, they were backed by all these audit companies. I mean, these accounting companies, they said that everything's okay. But some companies who are shorting those companies, they send their own investigator inside China, find out those companies are really, really questionable. And that's caused the recent collapse of all those Chinese concept stocks and tens of billions of dollars lost by the U.S. investors. So it's not a small issue, and the number, the report submitted by those accounting companies is really, really under kind of question. And for the SEC, if they don't have the raw material, there's no way for them to judge whether that's something wrong with the company or it's wrong with the accounting company. Who should carry the responsibility? They need the raw material, but now the kind of all the accounting company or either they make use of this Chinese law or they kind of really combined, kind of constrained by the Chinese law. They are saying we can't give you all the raw material, and this is the moment it bring the government into this debate. And again, I mean, basically it's something two government have been kind of discussed for many years, even at like 2 months ago. Now they have some agreement, like the Chinese government along the U.S. government sit into some discussion, but the Chinese government never back off along the U.S. kind of government really see the raw material of all those listed companies.
So it seems like the SEC, like you mentioned, Zhifei, were taking more aggressive action back in June, also with this thing in December. And also they've recently sued a man, David Zhou, and his company, who they were basically helping these Chinese companies facilitate these reverse mergers. Now, it seems, Jason, you were saying, okay, they were negotiating with the U.S., but if the SEC is taking more aggressive action, does that mean the negotiations, they're stopped, or like it's going to go to nowhere?
I think, unfortunately, that seems to be what's going on, because based on my source and my research, the 2 governments have been touch base, have been in constant strains of negotiation and bargaining since last year. And now, apparently, this kind of dialogue has collapsed. And because SEC has stepped up their own efforts unilaterally, that means the bilateral kind of negotiation didn't work. It's going nowhere.
But I think SEC is desperate because they didn't really realize why Chinese government is so kind of secretive about their data. But I do know, I mean, they should be secret about their data. And right now, everyone is saying that China is growing like crazy. But sometimes the numbers just don't add up together.
Well, that's one thing I wanted to ask. Why are these Chinese companies refusing to disclose? I mean, are we talking about like state-owned enterprises? Are these like sensitive?
Most of the companies are not state-owned. I mean, of course, there are some state-owned, but that makes things complicated because when you along the kind of U.S. government have access to some small company, although those companies, the non-companies that are investing may not be important, but this opens a door for the SEC to invest all the companies listed on in U.S. government kind of a stock market, including the PetroChina, all those telecom kind of company, and those companies really can reflect the real information about the Chinese economy and the development. When you invest those companies, because they are a huge part of the Chinese economy, when you see all the details of their numbers, then you will know some details, some truth about the Chinese economy. That will really make some kind of a skeleton get out of.
I'd like to stick on that point. Actually, it's actually a very guarded secret here in the United States. It even deceived a Wall Street legend, a guy named John Paulson, who made billions of dollars because he bet on the right side in the run-up to the financial crisis. That guy shorted all those subprime mortgages. He made billions, but he also lost billions of dollars because he was long on these Chinese firms. So we are talking about this guy who could see through all kinds of financial shenanigans, which gave us the financial crisis. But even he could not see the details behind the facade of Chinese prosperity. We're talking about firms, state-owned or private firms, that got a lot of capital from the government, who had a very shaky financial base and very creaky accounting practices. If American investors knew all of this, they would not even put one penny into these firms.
Well, if these firms are so shaky, how come they have money from the Chinese government?
A lot of the government owned. I mean, that's their kids. I mean, basically they will dump all their money. I mean, in our banking system, even print money to make sure they can survive. I mean, but the problem, there are kind of two things I think they want to cover. First of all is like the PetroChina. They made huge amount of kind of a profit out of the economy, and for the Chinese people, they always want to find out. We pay the highest kind of probably the highest kind of a gasoline price, and then but meanwhile the government owned. They got almost a free kind of resource from the country. So what's their kind of profit? That's the kind of secret they want to cover to the Chinese people.
So it's kind of so you're saying it's state secret to the Chinese people.
In part of it, that's the case. And meanwhile, of course, that's also reflected the current Chinese economy. I mean, when the GDP they claim grows nearly to 10%, and the electricity consumption is almost flat, and also the oil is also reflecting real number of the GDP. So when they put all this number into the light, maybe all the numbers they cranked out of the kind of published may under more kind of screening.
Yeah, so it's only iceberg that. Of the a tip of the iceberg of the whole Chinese economy. However, they are very symptomatic of the disease, the maladies that could hit or bring it down any time. So that's what is feared by the Chinese government. They really want to pull these companies off the market because they didn't want people to know the truth about Chinese economy.
Well, if you're afraid of people seeing what's behind your companies, why list them in the U.S.?
Oh, that's a mistake they made at the very beginning. I think now they realize that's a mistake. At the very beginning, their banking system really need money out of the whole world many years ago. And so they want to make use of this kind of global financial kind of market to get some money. And right now, they don't really need the money, but they are still kind of over there, they're under this scrutiny. So now that's the reason they want to even put their own money to take the company back so that they can get out of the schooling.
So you're saying that the Chinese companies, they may voluntarily take themselves out of the market, U.S. market, to avoid, being
what's going on, and under the guidance of the Chinese government. And like I said, specifically, the Chinese Development Bank is getting this assignment from government to put up a war chest of $1 billion to keep these companies off the market.
So they're going to buy back. And another thing that might happen, they're saying, is that these, like Chinese companies as a whole, may be forced to delist if the SEC can't find a kind of a negotiation with the Chinese securities, regulatory body. So is that going to affect U.S. investors? Should
Definitely.
they be worried about this?
If the company delist, I mean, then you lose money. I mean, basically that's the case. I mean, so I guess hopefully, I mean, there's some kind of a gradual change. Like if they buy back, U.S. kind of investor may lose less money. So, but the delist definitely is make kind of. But that's lesson learned. I mean, in the future, you should know things from China should be questioned.
Yeah, because of that, I'm kind of sympathetic with American auditors or CPA firms. First of all, I need to make a disclaimer. I didn't get any money from those firms, okay? But still, I think they are some kind of caught between a very hard place in a rock. Because no companies would be able to anticipate that a government could use state secret to withhold them the right, to deprive them the right of a thorough investigation of the firm, which is their business. This is really unthinkable.
So who stands to lose the most from this thing? Is it these Chinese companies that are listing the U.S.? Is it the U.S. investors who have, bought shares in these companies?
I think U.S. investor will be loser, biggest loser, and also all the company may be a loser if it's a lawsuit come in. And also some, like probably 10% of a Chinese company, they are really honest company, they are also loser because they are categorically labeled as a cheater. So I think, and also probably end up the Chinese kind of government can also be loser. And so nobody is winner in this situation.
If you want to rank the order of the loss amount, I think probably the biggest one is the Chinese government, because they try out of their ways, bend over backward to keep the secret from the public. But now I think the West has at least gotten some kind of inkling about what is really going on in the Chinese economy.
So let's talk about the wider effect of this. We only have about a minute left, but is it kind of, will it have an effect on the global markets, or is there something else that we should be looking for on a broader scale?
It's a special sector in the market. So right now, because of all these scandals, the sector is already downvalued to the point where it's have less impact. But still, there are big companies like Baidu. I mean, still have a pretty big market cap over there.
The market cap, I think, is minimal, and I don't think they will have some kind of ripple effect. But politically, it's huge, and it means the Chinese and the American government can now see eye to eye on some key economic matters, and that really have far-reaching effects, I think.
Well, thank you both for joining us today and talking about this issue, and thanks for watching. For more on this and other issues in China, join us at ntd.tv.